Derby, England. January 1930, Finzongerbejadrissa 30. The conference room at Rolls-Royce headquarters overlooks the factory floor where some of the world's finest aero engines take shape. Through the windows you can see machinists working lathes, hear the rhythmic clang of metal on metal, smell the distinctive scent of cutting oil and machined aluminum. Inside this room, something else is being manufactured, a deal that will change the course of history. 4 men sit around a polished mahogany table. 2 are British, senior executives from Rolls-Royce impeccably dressed in 3-piece suits. 2 are German, officials from the Luftwaffe Ministerium, the Reich Air Ministry, equally well-dressed but somehow more rigid, more formal. On the table between them sits a leather portfolio containing purchase orders and specifications. The senior Rolls-Royce executive, a man named Henderson, slides a document across the table. 4 Kestrel V engines, he says. 695 horsepower each. Liquid-cooled 12-cylinder supercharged. Our finest work. The German official, his name is Oberst Weber, examines the specifications carefully. His English is precise, almost perfect. And the delivery timeline: 6 weeks for crating and shipment. The engines are currently in final testing. Weber nods slowly. This is acceptable. Henderson hesitates for just a moment. Everyone in this room knows what these engines are for. Germany is rebuilding its air force openly now, in defiance of the Treaty of Versailles. These engines will power military aircraft. Fighters most likely. But business is business. And besides, the British government has already approved the sale. Relations with Germany are warming. The Great War ended 17 years ago. The world is moving on. In exchange, Henderson continues, we receive 1 Heinkel He-70 aircraft. For engine testing purposes. Yes, Weber confirms. A fair exchange. Your engineers will find the He-70 quite impressive. Fast modern design. Pens scratch across paper. Signatures are exchanged. Hands are shaken. Neither man can possibly imagine what they've just set in motion. The engines that will power the prototypes of Nazi Germany's most deadly fighter aircraft have just been sold by the very nation those fighters will soon try to destroy. 6 weeks later, 4 wooden crates leave Derby by rail. Each contains a Rolls-Royce Kestrel V engine carefully packed in straw and protective wrapping. They travel to Southampton, then by ship across the North Sea to Hamburg, then by rail again to Augsburg. The engines are immaculate. British craftsmanship at its finest. 12 cylinders arranged in a V configuration. Liquid cooling system. Supercharger. Every part machined to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. These engines represent everything Britain learned about aviation in the Great War and the years since. Every hard-won lesson, every technical breakthrough, every incremental improvement, all of it embodied in these 4 power plants. And now, they're Germany's. Augsburg, Germany. Late January 1935. The Bayerische Flugzeugwerke, Bavarian Aircraft Works, sits on the outskirts of the city, a collection of hangars and workshops that look almost shabby compared to the massive facilities of Henkel or Arado. Inside the main hangar, a single aircraft dominates the space. It's like nothing else in the world. Low-wing monoplane, sleek and modern. Enclosed cockpit with a canopy that curves like a teardrop. Retractable landing gear, still a novelty in 1935. The whole design screams speed, efficiency, aggression. But there's a problem. Where the engine should be, there's only an empty mounting frame. Willy Messerschmitt stands beside his creation, a cigarette dangling from his lips, staring at that empty space, with the expression of a man watching his dreams evaporate. Why work? Has 36 years old, brilliant, difficult, disliked by almost everyone in the Air Ministry. His previous venture, an airliner called the M20, ended in bankruptcy after a crash killed the test pilot. That pilot happened to be a close friend of Erhard Milch, now State Secretary for Aviation, and effectively the second most powerful man in German aviation after Hermann Göring himself. Milch hates Messerschmitt, has blocked his contracts, bad-mouthed his designs, done everything possible to keep this upstart from succeeding. But Messerschmitt has one thing going for him: as a genius. This aircraft, the Bf 109 V1, is proof of that genius. Clean lines, minimal drag, structural efficiency. On paper it should be faster than anything Germany has ever built, if only it had an engine. The German aero-engine industry is years behind. The BMW 116 that was supposed to power the Bf 109, cancelled. The Junkers Jumo 210, still in development, won't be ready for months, and the competition is looming. The Reich Air Ministry has demanded a fighter competition. 4 manufacturers, 4 prototypes. Winner gets the contract to build the Luftwaffe's next-generation fighter. Loser gets nothing. Messerschmitt's competitors have resources he can only dream of. Arado is established, experienced, well-connected. Focke-Wulf has Kurt Tank, one of Germany's best designers. Heinkel has Ernst Heinkel himself, arguably the most famous aircraft designer in the country, with facilities in Rostock that dwarf this Augsburg operation. And Messerschmitt has an empty engine mount. He takes a long drag on his cigarette, exhales slowly. His chief engineer Robert Lusser approaches with a telegram. From Berlin, Lusser says. The RLM. Messerschmitt takes it, reads quickly. His expression doesn't change, but something shifts behind his eyes. They've acquired engines, he says quietly. British engines. Rolls-Royce Kestrels. British? Lusser sounds incredulous. 4 engines total, purchased legally through regular channels. The British are apparently happy to sell to us now. And we get... Messerschmitt allows himself a slight smile. 2. We get 2 engines. Arado gets 1. Heinkel gets 1. 2 engines. Lusser looks at the empty Bf 109. We can work with 2 engines. We have to work with 2 engines. Messerschmitt drops the cigarette, crushes it under his heel. Because if we don't get this aircraft flying in the next 3 months, we're finished. He walks closer to the Bf 109, runs his hand along the wing's leading edge. The metal is cool, smooth, perfect. British engines to power a German fighter, he murmurs. Terry's some irony in that. Lusser shrugs. Who cares where the engines come from? We just need to fly. We just need to win. Outside, a truck pulls up to the hangar. 2 wooden crates in the back, each marked with Rolls-Royce shipping labels and German custom stamps. The engines have arrived. BFW Factory, Airfield, Augsburg. May 29, 1935. Morning light slants across the grass runway. Dew still clings to the blades, glinting in the early sun. The Bf 109 V1 sits at the edge of the field, and for the first time it looks complete. The Rolls-Royce Kestrel V nestles in the engine bay like it was born there. The British engine's elegant lines match the German airframe's aggressive aesthetics almost perfectly. Cooling system plumbed, exhaust manifolds fitted, propeller mounted. The engine cowling, painted in light gray primer, gleams dully in the morning light. A small crowd has gathered. Factory workers, engineers, a few officials from the Air Ministry sent to observe, and Willy Messerschmitt himself, chain-smoking as usual, trying to look calm and failing completely. The test pilot is Hans Dietrich Noach. Everyone calls him Booby, baby, though Hes 27 years old and has more flight hours than most men, twice his age. Short, compact build, dark hair, eyes that miss nothing. He walks around the aircraft, slowly performing his pre-flight inspection. Runs his hand along the wing's leading edge. Checks the control surfaces, ailerons, elevator, rudder. Peers into the air intake. Examines the landing gear struts. Everything is new. Everything is untested. Everything could fail. The landing gear in particular worries him. It's mounted on the fuselage, not the wings retracting outward. Narrow track. Makes the aircraft unstable on the ground. The engineers have even installed a metal bar between the gear legs as a safety precaution during taxi tests. But none of that matters right now. Right now, he just needs to get it into the air. Noetsch climbs into the cockpit. The canopy is still open. The enclosed cockpit is revolutionary. Most fighters still have open cockpits, giving pilots better visibility, but also exposing them to wind, cold, and engine exhaust. The German cockpit is cramped but efficient. Stick throttle, rudder pedals, instrument panel with the usual gauges, airspeed, altitude, artificial horizon, engine temperature, oil pressure. Gun sight mount, though no guns are installed yet. And directly in front of him, through the propeller arc, a very British badge, the Rolls-Royce logo. "Clear," Noetsch shouts. A mechanic at the propeller gives a thumbs up and pulls the starter. The Kestrel coughs once, twice, then catches with a roar that echoes across the airfield. 695 horsepower shakes the airframe. The propeller becomes a blur. Blue exhaust smoke drifts past the cockpit. Noetsch works the throttle, listening to the engine's note. Smooth. No misfires. No roughness. Temperature climbing normally. Oil pressure good. The British know how to build engines. He waves away the chocks, eases the throttle forward. The Bf 109 starts to roll. Immediately, the narrow landing gear makes itself known. The aircraft wants to wobble, wants to swap ends. Noetsch works the rudder, constantly making tiny corrections. He can't see directly ahead. The nose is too high, the engine cowling blocks his view. He has to weave side to side to check for obstacles. But he makes it to the runway threshold. Lines up. Runs through the mental checklist one more time. Then he pushes the throttle to full power. The Kestrel screams. The Bf 109 leaps forward. Acceleration is immediate, brutal. The airspeed indicator climbs rapidly. 60 kilometers per hour. 80. 100. The tail comes up. Suddenly, Noetsch can see ahead. The runway stretches out before him, grass rushing past in a green blur. 120 kilometers per hour. The Bf 109 wants to fly. He can feel it in the controls. That moment when the aircraft transitions from ground machine to air machine, when the wings start generating lift, when everything changes. 140 kilometers per hour. He pulls back gently on the stick. The Bf 109 V1 leaves the ground. For a moment, Noetsch holds his breath. This is the moment when everything falls apart, when design flaws and engineering mistakes reveal themselves, when gravity reclaims what it's owed. But the Bf 109 climbs smoothly. The Kestrel pulls without hesitation. The controls respond crisply. Noetsch allows himself a small smile. He flies a circuit around the field. Tests the controls. Gentle turns, pitch changes, checking for unusual characteristics. Everything feels right. Balanced. Responsive. Fast. The landing gear retracts cleanly. The aircraft seems to accelerate as drag disappears. The speed builds to 300 kilometers per hour with room to spare. This is not like the biplanes still filling Germanis fighter squadrons. This is something new. Something dangerous. 20 minutes later, Noetsch brings the Bf 109 back around for landing. Extends the gear. Lines up on the runway. Reduces power. The landing is challenging. The narrow track makes it unstable. The aircraft wants to ground loop. He fights it all the way down, working stick and rudder, until the wheels touch and the Bf 109 rolls to a stop. Noetsch shuts down the Kestrel. The propeller winds down. Silence returns to the airfield. He sits in the cockpit for a moment, breathing hard, heart still racing. Then, he opens the canopy and climbs out. Messerschmitt is already running toward the aircraft Lasser close behind. The engineers swarm around, examining every rivet, every panel, looking for problems. "Well?" Messerschmitt demands. Noetsch pulls off his leather helmet, runs a hand through sweat-dampened hair. "It flies," he says simply. "It flies very well, but not everyone is impressed." 2 weeks later, Ernst Udet visits the BFW factory. Noetsch is a legend. second highest scoring German ace of the Great War with 62 confirmed kills. Survived when so many others didn't. Became a stunt pilot after the war, performing aerobatics at air shows across Europe and America. Now is being drawn back into military aviation as Germany rebuilds its air force. Has also a friend of Messerschmitt's, or was anyway. It's hard to stay friends in the cutthroat world of German aviation contracts. Messerschmitt gives him the grand tour, shows him the factory floor, the design offices, the wind tunnel data. Saves the Bf 109 for last. They stand beside the prototype in the hangar. Morning light streams through the high windows, painting the aircraft in stark shadows. Nochish walks around it slowly, examines the wing, the landing gear, the engine installation. His expression is unreadable. Finally, he speaks. This machine will never make a fighter. The words hang in the air like a death sentence. Messerschmitt's face goes white. Ernst, look at it. Judith gestures at the landing gear. Narrow track. The pilots will never be able to land this safely, and the wing loading is too high. It will need long runways, high landing speeds. In combat conditions on rough fields. He shakes his head. It's a racing plane, Willie, not a fighter. The performance means nothing if your pilots can't land it without killing themselves. Judith walks away, leaving Messerschmitt standing alone beside his creation. But Ernst Judith, for all his experience, for all his skill, is about to be proven catastrophically wrong. Meanwhile, Germany's other aircraft manufacturers are building their own entries for the competition. At the Arado works in Brandenburg, the R-80 takes shape. It's an inverted gull-wing monoplane, distinctive, unusual, designed by Walter Bloom. Like the Bf 109, it needs an engine it doesn't have. Like the Bf 109, it receives a Rolls-Royce Kestrel. The R-80 F1 flies for the first time in March 1935, just weeks before the Bf 109. It's immediately clear that something is wrong. Underpowered. Excessive drag. The airframe structure weighs more than calculated. Worse, the test pilot loses control on one of the early flights. The R-80 F1 crashes, destroyed. A second prototype is built with modifications. But it's too late. The R-80 is already out of the running. In Hamburg, Focke-Wulf's entry is even more problematic. The F-159 is a parasol wing design, the wing mounted above the fuselage on struts like something from the 1920s. It looks anachronistic before it even flies. The undercarriage is delicate, complicated, problematic. On the first flight, one gear leg refuses to extend. The test pilot, Wolfgang Stein, manages to get it down in one piece, but has injured in the crash landing. A second prototype has a strengthened undercarriage. It still causes severe problems. The F-159 is clearly not going to win anything. That leaves one serious competitor, the Heinkel He-1. Ernst Heinkel is Germany's most famous aircraft designer. His He-70 was so impressive that the British exchanged it for those 4 Kestrel engines. His He-90, when doubt, will become one of the Luftwaffe's primary bombers. The He-112 is beautiful. Elliptical wings, smooth lines, all metal construction. Like the Bf 109, it receives a Rolls-Royce Kestrel for its prototype. When it flies in September 1935, it's clear this is the aircraft to beat. Excellent flight characteristics, pleasant to fly, good visibility. Stable landing characteristics, much better than the twitchy Bf 109. The He-112 is the favorite. Everyone at the Air Ministry expects it to win. Everyone except the pilots who actually fly both aircraft in direct comparison. Rechlin Aerodrome, Germany. October 15, 1935. Rechlin is where the German Air Force tests everything. New aircraft, new weapons, new tactics. It's the proving ground, the final exam, the place where careers are made or destroyed. Hans-Dietrich Nietz brings the Bf 109 V1 here to demonstrate its capabilities to Air Ministry officials. He makes an intermediate stop at Jüterbog, a fighter base south of Berlin, to refuel. The moment he lands, pilots swarm the aircraft. They've heard rumors about this new fighter. Now they see it with their own eyes. Enclosed cockpit. Retractable gear. Sleek, modern, dangerous looking. One of the young pilots examining the Bf 109 is named Adolf Galland. Hunt's 23 years old, flying obsolete Heinkel. Hunt seen its few years whole be one of Germany's top aces, a general at 30, commander of all Luftwaffe fighters. Right now has just a junior pilot staring at the future. It looks fast, Galland says. Notch, in loading some personal gear from the cockpit, smiles. It is fast. How fast? Fast enough. The pilots examine every detail. The narrow landing gear. The enclosed canopy. The Rolls-Royce engine. British engine. One pilot asks, incredulous. Nowitz shrugs. For now. The production models will have UMO engines, if there are production models. He climbs back into the cockpit, starts the Kestrel, taxis out. The young pilots watch him take off, watch the Bf 109 climb away toward Rechlin. They don't know it yet, but they're watching the aircraft that will define their war. At Rechlin, a crowd waits. Air Ministry officials test pilots, engineers, reporters. Everyone wants to see Messerschmitt's mystery fighter. Nowitz arrives overhead and immediately begins his demonstration. He dives from 7,000 meters, the Bf 109 screaming toward the earth. The Kestrel howls. The airframe holds together. He pulls out smoothly, climbs away. Aerobatic maneuvers, rolls, loops, Cuban 8s. The Bf 109 handles beautifully. Responsive, crisp, powerful. The crowd is impressed. Very impressed. Then Nowitz brings it in for landing. This is where it all goes wrong. Heads high, just slightly high on the approach. Tries to correct. Drops. The nose increases the descent rate. The Bf 109 drops toward the runway faster than intended. The wheels touch. Hard. Too hard. The aircraft bounces. Rises a meter, maybe a meter and a half. Comes down again, even harder. The left main gear hits first. The tail wheel slams down. The impact is massive. Something breaks. The tail wheel separates. The fuselage cracks in 3 places. The left landing gear strut bends inward, the wheel digging into the runway. Then the left wing tip hits the ground. The Bf 109 slews violently to the right, propeller clawing at earth and grass. Metal shrieks. Something tears loose. The aircraft tips forward, balancing on its nose and one landing gear leg and one wing tip tail high in the air like it's bowing to the assembled crowd. Then it settles back down. Silence. Nowitz sits in the cockpit, stunned. Around him, the Bf 109 V1 is wrecked. Not destroyed. Nothing's on fire, but clearly damaged. People run toward the aircraft. Mechanics, officials, reporters. Fire crew stands by just in case. Nowitz opens the canopy, climbs out. Hes uninjured. Shaken, embarrassed, but uninjured. The damage assessment begins immediately. Fuselage cracked in 3 places. Left landing gear strut bent. Tail wheel mounting torn out. Wing skin buckled. Propeller tips curled from ground strike. But the Rolls-Royce Kestrel remarkably is undamaged. Within hours, Nowitz is fired. Blamed for the crash. Accused of exposing the secret fighter to curious pilots at Uterborg. Dismissed immediately, no second chances. He'll eventually find work testing Fokker fighters in the Netherlands. His fate after that is lost to history. The Bf 109 V1 is shipped back to Augsburg in pieces. And Heinkel's representatives write a gleeful report detailing every failure of the Messerschmitt design. Landing gear too weak. Handling too difficult. Dangerous to fly. The He-112 looks like it's won before the competition even officially begins. But Messerschmitt isn't finished yet. Travemünde and Rechlin, Germany. February 1936. Winter. Cold gray. The kind of weather that makes you question every life choice that led you to standing on a frozen airfield watching experimental aircraft. But here they are, the survivors of Germany's fighter competition. The R-80 and Febu 159 are already out. Crashed, too problematic, clearly inferior. It's down to 2 Messerschmitt's Bf 109 versus Heinkel's He-112. The Bf 109 has been rebuilt. Noach is gone, replaced by a new test pilot named Hermann Verster. The second prototype, Bf 109 V2, has joined the test program, now powered by a German Junkers Jumo 210 engine instead of the British Kestrel. Everything learned from the Kestrel-powered V1 has been incorporated into the new tests. The engine installation, the cooling system, the propeller selection, all the lessons bought with British technology. Worster is everything cadets want: confident, aggressive, a showman. Hess relatively inexperienced, but he has something more important: Hes fearless. The comparative trials run for 3 days, February 26-27 and March 2nd. On the first day, officials and test pilots gather at the airfield. Both aircraft sit on the flight line. The He-112 looks elegant, professional, ready. The Bf 109 looks aggressive, dangerous, unproven. Worster arrives early, walks around the Bf 109 V2 running through his mental checklist. Has flown this aircraft dozens of times now, knows its quirks, knows what it can do. More importantly, he knows what to show the officials. He climbs into the cockpit. The Jumo 210 starts with a snarl. Different sound from the Kestrel. Rougher, more aggressive. German engineering instead of British refinement. But it works. Worster taxis out. No problems with the narrow gear today. Hess learned to dance with it, tiny rudder corrections keeping the aircraft tracking straight. Takeoff is clean. The Bf 109 leaps into the air. Then Worster proceeds to throw the aircraft around the sky like it's made of rubber. He climbs to 7,000 meters, then points the nose straight down. Power dive. The Bf 109 screams toward Earth. The Jumo howls at full throttle. Speed builds rapidly. 300 kilometers per hour. 400. 450. The wings stay attached. The airframe holds together. No flutter. No buffeting. At the last possible moment, Worster pulls back on the stick. The Bf 109 pulls out of the dive so hard that the officials watching from the ground can see the wings flex. 6 Gs, maybe more. Enough to make most pilots black out. Worster stays conscious, climbs away, does it again. Dive. Pull out. Climb. Dive. Pull out. Climb. Hess demonstrating what this aircraft can do. What it can survive. What it can inflict on an enemy. Then the aerobatics. Rolls. Loops. Hammerhead stalls. Cuban 8s. Everything. Smooth, precise. Powerful. This is He-112 pilot Gerhard Nitschke goes up next. The He-112 pilot Gerhard Nitschke goes up next. Ruhefenouter. The theme 112 enters a flat. Spin. Nitschke tries to recover. Can't. The aircraft refuses to respond. He has no choice. He bails out. The He-112 enters a flat spin. Nitschke tries to recover. Can't. The aircraft refuses to respond. He has no choice. He bails out. The He-112 V2 impacts the ground and explodes. Nitschke survives dangling from his parachute, watching his aircraft burn. The officials watching take note. Over 3 days, Worster demonstrates everything the Bf 109 can do. Speed, climb rate, maneuverability, dive capability, structural strength. The test pilots who actually fly both aircraft are honest in their assessments. The He-112 is more pleasant to fly. Better landing characteristics. Better visibility. Easier for average pilots to handle. But the Bf 109 is faster. Climbs better. Structurally stronger. And critically, much cheaper to build. Messerschmitt claims the Bf 109 takes 6,000 man-hours to build from start to finish. Ernst Heinkel admits the He-112 took 40,000 man-hours for the first prototype. Even production models will take 15,000 hours. The math is simple. For every He-112, Germany can build 2 or 3 Bf-109s. Rechlin test pilot Gerhard Geike writes in his report, in spite of its faults, the Bf-109 has been given preference because of its better performance, lower weight and cheaper construction. Ernst Udet changes his mind. On July 30, Laser Unschulei for Miathle 19 6,000 man-hours to build from start to finish. Ernst Heinkel admits the He-112 took 40. Jens Macher. A He-112 Germany can build 2 or 3 Bf-109s. Rechlin test pilot Gerhard Geike writes in his report, in spite of its faults, the Bf-109 has been given preference because of its better performance, lower weight, and cheaper construction. Ernst Udet changes his mind. On July 3, G-51 escorts never see him coming. They're flying at 250 kilometers per hour. The Bf-109 is doing 450. The speed difference is so overwhelming that Udet can simply position himself behind each escort in turn and shoot them down before they can react. Then the bombers. Same story. The Bf-109 is so much faster that the bombers can't evade, can't escape. In 10 minutes, Udet destroys the entire formation. Göring is delighted. This is exactly what Germany needs. A fighter so fast, so powerful that it makes everything else obsolete. On March 12, 1936, the Air Ministry issues the official order. The Bf-109 wins the competition. Production will begin immediately at Augsburg. The first operational aircraft will be delivered to the Luftwaffe by the end of the year. Messerschmitt has won, and the aircraft he won with was perfected using a British engine. Augsburg, Germany. December 1936. July 1937. The first production Bf-109B rolls off the assembly line in December 1936. July 1937. The first production Bf-109B rolls off the assembly line in December 1936. It's similar to the prototypes but refined. Better armament. 2 rifle-caliber machine guns synchronized to fire through the propeller arc. Better instruments. Better cockpit layout. And a German engine, the Junkers Jumo 210D. The German aero engine industry has finally caught up. The Kestrel's job is done. But the Kestrel's legacy lives on in every detail of the Bf-109's design. The engine installation. The cooling system layout. The propeller selection. All of it informed by the testing done with those 4 British engines. By early 1937, Bf-109Bs are equipping fighter squadrons. Gatgeschwader 130. The Bf-109B enclosed cockpit, retractable gear, all-metal stressed skin construction. Maximum speed 465 km per hour. The Bistibrisi Omsnan Fenrex 5, Maschine no Fies Lipgard Jurli the Bot. Du meist die Oxib des Lorenz Naus Brises Plurs. The Mimlia Board Jia. The Bot Nice Smell Life. Thus, the best resemble dish. Seem Halpeg Nams. Machinias Sigsables Vre Life. Because the bit maxim the nail rins. The Jew mais dealt some mall. But. Machiniax. Brichis the best reseal wa. Nax move canabinly. Beckons the yo. Kixiol what exceededs. Which aid in the funnig do ones might seer. Which even the freer at a may says. Peter begin at us / with meth reabid. Born off. But thitchubot. Projumerst you det real soft at sounds and fear. Thou bind circumcis for and this difficult. With some fly information. The feedy reach the wick sitwin. With many through meshi ya. For you need is cleftlida. Luchai speakly you. Vis tial. Che journey told for. We chake moose tringtri. Not hazarda. Furmorala. Launch jumix slida. The works, Chidru. The bind got some proof. Ernst Udet is there, flying a Bf-109 in the speed competition. He suffers an engine failure and has to force land near Thun. The aircraft is wrecked, but Udet walks away with only bruises. By the end of the meeting, the world knows Germany has created something extraordinary. The aircraft perfected with British engines is now revealed as the most advanced fighter in the world. Hermann Wurster, the test pilot who redeemed the Bf 109 after Knotz's crash, breaks the world speed record in November 1937, flying a specially prepared Bf 109 V13, still powered by a development of the Daimler-Benz DB600. Lessons learned from the Kestrel installation, feeding into German engine development. He achieves 610.95 kilometers per hour. The record belongs to Germany. But the Bf 109 isn't just for air shows and record attempts. Spain, 1936 to 1939. Civil war tears the country apart. Nationalists versus Republicans. Fascists versus communists. A proving ground for new weapons, new tactics, new aircraft. Germany sends the Condor Legion, a volunteer force that's actually regular Luftwaffe units with their insignia covered. They fly Heinkel He 101 Weimar U-DGAET, Sage, Stuka dive bombers, and Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighters. The Bf 109s arrive in Spain in early 1937. First the B model, then the C, then the D, then the E. They face Russian-built Polikarpov 515 and Pusikhin fighters flown by Republican pilots. The Soviet fighters are good, modern, well-armed, agile. The Bf 109 is better. Speed is everything in combat. The Bf 109 can choose when to engage, when to disengage. It can dive away from danger. It can climb above threats. German pilots develop new tactics. Pairs of fighters, Rade, instead of the traditional 3-aircraft 5 formation. Energy fighting instead of dogfighting. Boom and zoom attacks. By the end of the Spanish Civil War in 1939, the Bf 109 has proven itself in combat. The lessons learned in Spain feed directly into the Luftwaffe's preparations for the next war. The aircraft that first flew with a British engine is now a battle-tested weapon. Production accelerates. New variants appear. The Bf 109E, Emil, with the more powerful Daimler-Benz DB601 engine. Faster still, better armed. 2 machine guns in the nose, 2 20mm cannons in the wings. By September 1939, when Germany invades Poland, the Luftwaffe has over 1,000 Bf 109s in service. The world is about to discover what this aircraft can do when unleashed on a continental scale. Southern England, August 13, 1940. The date the Luftwaffe calls Adlertag, Eagle Day, the beginning of the air assault on Britain that will determine whether Germany can invade or whether Britain can survive. Messerschmitt Bf 109E fighters cross the English Channel in massive formations, hundreds of them, escorting bombers sweeping ahead to clear the way, hunting for Royal Air Force fighters. The pilots flying these Bf 109s are the best in the world. Veterans of Poland, of France, of Norway. Men with dozens of kills already. Confident, experienced, deadly. Some of them, like Adolf Galland, now a major and squadron commander, saw the first Bf 109 prototype at Jüterbog 5 years ago. Now they're flying the perfected version, the culmination of everything that design promised. And they're attacking the country that sold the engines that made it all possible. The British are waiting. Royal Air Force Fighter Command has 2 primary aircraft, the Hawker Hurricane and the Supermarine Spitfire. The Hurricane is solid, reliable, heavily armed. It can absorb punishment and keep flying. But it's slower than the Bf 109, less maneuverable at high speed. The Spitfire is a masterpiece. Elliptical wings, sleek lines, powered by the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, descendant of the Kestrel that powered the Bf 109 prototypes. The Merlin is everything the Kestrel was, and more power, more reliability, more sophistication. The Spitfire can match the Bf 109 in almost everything. Speed, climb rate, maneuverability. It's a fair fight, The first fair fight the Bf-109 has encountered. British engines versus British tested designs. August 13 dawns clear and bright. Perfect weather for killing. The radar stations along the English coast pick up the first formations shortly after noon. Dozens of contacts, then hundreds. The raid tracks show them clearly, bombers and the center fighters above and around them. RAF fighter squadrons scramble. Hurricanes and Spitfires claw for altitude, racing to intercept before the German bombers reach their targets. Over the channel, Galland leads his fighters at 20,000 feet. Below and behind Haeckel, He-111 bombers drone toward England at 15,000 feet. The target RAF airfields in Kent and Sussex. Indian country ahead, Galland's wingman reports over the radio, their code for enemy territory. Galland scans the sky. His eyes, trained by hundreds of combat hours, pick out tiny specks against the bright sky. Spitfires, climbing to intercept. Break by pairs, Galland orders. Take the fighters. The formation splits. Pairs of Bf-109s peel off, diving toward the climbing Spitfires. This is what they trained for. What the aircraft was designed for. High-speed interception. Energy fighting. Using speed and altitude to dictate the terms of engagement. Galland rolls inverted, pulls through into a steep dive. His wingman Oberfeldwebel-Meyer stays glued to his wing. The Daimler-Benz DB601 screams at full power. The airspeed indicator climbs past 600 kilometers per hour. The Spitfires see them coming. Too late to climb away, too late to run. They turn to meet the attack. Galland pulls out of the dive behind a Spitfire, the G-forces crushing him into his seat. His thumb finds the firing button. The 20mm cannons thunder. The Spitfire's port wing explodes in a shower of aluminum fragments. The British fighter rolls onto its back, streaming smoke falls away. But there's another Spitfire on Meyer's tail. Galland sees it, shouts a warning, but Meyer is already hit. Smoke pours from his engine. The Bf-109 falls away, Meyer fighting the controls. "Bail out," Galland screams into the radio. Meyer's canopy flies off. He climbs out onto the wing, jumps. The parachute deploys. He'll land in the channel if he survives. Galland reverses hard, trying to get guns on the Spitfire that hit Meyer. But the British pilot is good. He's already turning, using the Spitfire's superior turning radius to stay out of Galland's firing solution. They spiral around each other. Bf-109 and Spitfire locked in a turning fight at 15,000 feet. Both aircraft at the edge of their performance envelopes. Both pilots fighting their controls, fighting the G-forces, fighting each other. Galland realizes he can't win this fight. The Spitfire can turn inside him. Given enough time, the British pilot will get a shot. So he does what the Bf-109 does best. He runs. Full throttle, stick forward, diving away at maximum speed. The Spitfire follows, but it can't keep up. The Bf-109's dive performance is superior. Within seconds, Galland has opened the range to 1,000 meters, then 2,000. He pulls up, climbs away, checks his fuel. Low. Time to head home. Below, the bombers have dropped their loads on RAF Manston and are turning back toward France. Some are damaged, streaming smoke. Some are falling. The Spitfires and Hurricanes have exacted a price. This is not Poland. This is not France. This is a real air force with modern fighters fighting for their survival. The Battle of Britain rages for months. Every day the Bf-109s cross the channel. Every day they fight. Every day more aircraft fall, German and British alike. The Bf-109 pilots discover the aircraft's limitations. Range is the biggest problem. The Bf-109E has fuel for about 60 to 90 minutes of flight time. At combat power, much less. By the time they reach London, their fuel gauge warning lights already glowing. They have maybe 10 to 15 minutes over the target before they must turn back or risk running out of fuel over the channel. British fighters can wait, can pick their moments, can attack when the Bf-109s are low on fuel, desperate to disengage, vulnerable. The narrow landing gear remains unforgiving. Pilots returning to French airfields low on fuel often damaged crash on landing. The Bf-109's accident rate is almost as high as its combat loss rate, and the Spitfire proves to be a worthy opponent. Not superior, not inferior, just different. A fair fight. But the Bf-109 remains deadly. In the hands of skilled pilots, it shoots down Hurricanes and Spitfires in large numbers. The top German aces, Mulders, Wick, Balthasar, rack up kills at a frightening rate. By the end of October 1940, the Battle of Britain is effectively over. Germany has failed to achieve air superiority. The invasion of Britain is cancelled. But the Bf-109 has proven something important. It can fight the best Britain has and hold its own. The aircraft perfected with British engines has become Britain's most dangerous adversary. Over the next 5 years, Bf-109s will fly on every front. Russia, North Africa, Italy, France, defending the Reich against American bomber fleets. New variants appear. The F model, Friedrich, sleeker, cleaner, faster. The G model, Gustav, more heavily armed, more powerful engine adapted for multiple roles. The K model, final production variant incorporating everything learned in 5 years of war. 34,000 Bf-109s will be built before production ends. More than any other fighter aircraft in history. The top aces fly it. Erich Hartmann, the highest-scoring fighter pilot of all time, with 352 confirmed kills, flies only Bf-109s. Gerhard Barkhorn, second highest, with 301 kills, flies Bf-109s. Günter Rall, third highest, with 275 kills, flies Bf-109s. They call it different things. Emil for the E model, Friedrich for the F, Gustav for the G, Kurfürst for the K. But they all trace their lineage back to that first prototype, the Bf-109, F-1, first flown in May 1935. Powered by a British engine. Nuremberg, Germany. November 1945. The war is over. Germany has surrendered. The cities are rubble. The Luftwaffe is destroyed. The Reich is occupied. In Britain, the Royal Air Force is compiling reports on German aviation technology. Captured documents. Interrogations of designers and pilots. Assessments of aircraft performance. One report focuses on the Bf-109's development history. It's there in dry bureaucratic language that British officials learn the full story of the Rolls-Royce Kestrel engines sold to Germany in 1935. The report notes 4 Kestrel V engines purchased through normal commercial channels were used to power the prototypes of German fighter designs, including the Messerschmitt Bf-109, which became the Luftwaffe's primary fighter aircraft throughout the war. It doesn't say what everyone reading it must be thinking. We helped them build the weapon that killed our pilots. The decision to sell those engines made sense in 1935. Germany was no longer an enemy. The Treaty of Versailles restrictions were being gradually lifted. Commercial relations were normalizing. The British government wanted to encourage peaceful German rearmament to integrate Germany back into the European order. No one could have predicted that within 4 years those engines would help create the fighter that would terrorize Europe. Or could they? Even in 1935, the signs were there. Hitler had been in power for 2 years. The Nazi Party was consolidating control. Rearmament was accelerating. The rhetoric was increasingly aggressive. But Britain chose commerce over caution. Rolls-Royce wanted the sale. The government approved it. 4 engines in exchange for 1 test aircraft. It seemed like a fair trade. The Heinkel He-70 that Britain received was interesting but not revolutionary. British engineers examined it, tested it, learned a few things about German design philosophy. It was scrapped in 1944 or 1945, its contribution to British aviation, minimal. Meanwhile, those 4 Kestrel engines contributed to the development of an aircraft that would be produced 34,000 times, that would fight on every front, that would claim tens of thousands of Allied lives. The irony extends beyond Indalana Almena. The Arado R-80, powered by a Kestrel, influenced German fighter development, even though it lost the competition. The Heinkel He 112, also Kestrel-powered, was exported to Romania, Hungary, and Spain, where it fought against Allied forces. All of Germany's 1935 fighter competition benefited from British engine technology. The knowledge gained about cooling systems, engine installations, propeller selection, performance characteristics fed into the entire German aviation industry. Britain, trying to build bridges with Germany, inadvertently helped Germany build fighters. What if Britain had refused the sale? It's impossible to say with certainty, but consider, without Kestrel engines, the 1935 fighter competition would have been delayed until German engines were ready. That's a minimum 6-month delay, possibly a year. The Bf 109 might still have won. But without the Kestrel to test, the airframe design problems might not have been identified as quickly. Development might have taken longer. Even a 6-month delay in Bf 109 development could have altered the war's timeline. 6 months fewer Bf 109s available in 1939. 6 months less pilot training. 6 months less tactical development. And the Battle of Britain, decided by narrow margins. 6 months could have meant everything, or it could have meant nothing. Germany might have simply found another way. Might have bought engines elsewhere, or waited for their own engines, or chosen a different aircraft altogether. Counterfactuals are always uncertain. What's certain is this: Britain sold the engines. Germany used them brilliantly. The Bf 109 became one of the most successful fighter aircraft in history. And at the core of that success, buried in the development history, is a British contribution that can never be erased. Willy Messerschmitt survives the war. Hes arrested, investigated for war crimes, eventually released. He continues designing aircraft into the 1970s, though he never quite recaptures his earlier success. He dies in 1978, aged 80. Ernst Udet, the man who first dismissed the Bf 109, then became its champion, commits suicide in November 1941. Overwhelmed by the Luftwaffe's failures in Russia, caught between impossible demands from Hitler and bitter infighting with Erhard Milch, he shoots himself. He leaves a note blaming the Jew Milch for his troubles, a tragic end to a tragic figure. Hermann Wurster, the test pilot who redeemed the Bf 109 after Knoetsch's crash, survives the war. His contribution to German aviation is never properly recognized. He fades into obscurity. Hans Dietrich Knoetsch, fired after crashing the Bf 109 Phi-1 at Rechlin, finds work testing Fokker fighters in the Netherlands. His fate during the war is unknown. He disappears from the historical record, another casualty of German bureaucracy. Hello, Adolf Galland, who saw the first Bf 109 at Jüterbog as a young pilot, becomes one of Germany's greatest aces. 104 confirmed kills. General at age 30, commander of all Luftwaffe fighters. He survives the war, writes. His memoirs, becomes a consultant to the Argentine Air Force. He dies in 1996, aged 83, one of the last links to that era. The Bf 109 itself flies on long after the war ends. The Spanish Air Force keeps flying Bf 109s until the 1960s, though by then they've replaced the Daimler-Benz engines with Rolls-Royce Merlins. The final irony: Bf 109s created with British engines ending their service with British engines once again. The Czech Air Force flies Bf 109s until 1957. Israel uses captured Bf 109s in its 1948 War of Independence. German fighters flown by Jewish pilots. The last known flight of a Bf 109 in military service was in 1965. Today, about 30 Bf 109s survive in museums and private collections worldwide. Some are originals, painstakingly restored. Some are reconstructions built from fragments and drawings. None of them, as far as anyone knows, still has a Rolls-Royce Kestrel engine. The Kestrel-powered Bf 109 Phi-1, the first one, the one that proved the concept, was scrapped in 1938 after its usefulness ended. No thought was given to preserving it for history. They wove, thrice. In one museum, there's a small plaque next to a restored Bf 109E. It mentions in passing that the prototype was initially powered by a British Rolls-Royce Kestrel V engines. The SAC. Discernment records. Bekopenis photographs am Tatas Pretepanist first breath. Ship midst veal and ass. At Warben Triestein copper. There's Pede Kalade. It's all there. Perfectly legal, perfectly documented. A routine commercial transaction. 4 engines, 1 test aircraft in exchange. No one involved in that transaction could have known what they were setting in motion. They were just doing business. Just trying to normalize relations with Germany. Just trying to move forward from the last war. They couldn't have known about the next war. About the Bf 109s that would swarm over Poland, over France, over Britain. About the 34,000 aircraft that would be built. About the tens of thousands of Allied pilots who would face these fighters in combat. They couldn't have known that a simple sale of aircraft engines would become a cautionary tale about technology transfer and unintended consequences. But they should have suspected. Even in 1935, Germany's intentions were becoming clear. The rhetoric, the rearmament, the Nuremberg rallies, the concentration camps already beginning to fill. Britain chose to look away, chose commerce over caution, chose to believe that engagement was better than isolation. And Germany used that British technology brilliantly. The Bf 109 wasn't created by those 4 Kestrel engines. Willy Messerschmitt's genius created it. German engineering refined it. Luftwaffe pilots proved it in combat. But those British engines gave it life. Allowed the prototypes to fly before German engines were ready, provided the test platform that proved the concept could work. Without the Kestrel, the Bf 109 might still have existed, but it might have been delayed, might have been different, might have lost the competition to the He 112. History turns on such small decisions. 4 engines. That's all it took to help birth the weapon that would define aerial combat for a generation. The British sold them for £3,000 each, roughly £240,000 in tow days money for all 4. A tiny sum even then. They got 1 test aircraft in return. Germany got the foundation for the most produced fighter aircraft in history. In the cold calculus of history, it was the worst trade Britain ever made. The Bf 109's story is ultimately about how technology knows no loyalty. How innovation can be turned to any purpose. How the line between commerce and complicity can blur when nations trade military equipment. Britain built engines to power its own aircraft. Those engines were magnificent, products of decades of engineering knowledge refined through years of testing and improvement. Germany bought 4 of them. Installed them in prototype fighters, learned everything they could, then built their own engines, their own fighters, their own air force, and used all of it to nearly conquer Europe. That's the legacy of the Rolls-Royce Kestrel in German service. Not just a footnote in aviation history, not just a technical curiosity, but a warning about the consequences of technology transfer and the price of naivete. 4 engines crossed the North Sea in wooden crates in early 1935. Within 5 years, thousands of Bf 109s were crossing the English Channel to attack the country that supplied those engines. The mechanics in Derby who crated those Kestrels for shipping never knew what they were sending. The officials in London who approved the sale never imagined the consequences. The executives at Rolls-Royce who negotiated the deal never foresaw the irony. But history remembers. On May 29, 1935, Hans-Dietrich Notzig took off in the Bf 109 Phi-1 powered by a British Rolls-Royce Kestrel V engine. The flight lasted 20 minutes. The consequences lasted a decade and claimed millions of lives. That's the story of how a Rolls-Royce engine helped birth the Nazi Luftwaffe, a story of innovation and irony, of commerce and conflict, of the best intentions leading to the worst outcomes. A story that reminds us that technology is neutral, but its applications never are. And a story that should make us ask even today, when we sell weapons, when we share technology, when we engage in commerce with potential adversaries, what are we really building?